So again, just asking how this project kind of came to be and how the collaboration between you two sort of first originated.
Sure. We were on set of a different movie called The Last Sun, which is a Western we were shooting in Montana. And I don't know, I think for me it was like I had an instant connection to the guy and just kind of understood something about him in the way that I saw myself and what I want to do as a filmmaker, and I saw that he hadn't really done that or been able to do that as an actor yet. It's something he's been able to do as a musician on a far greater scale. And so I just found him fascinating, found him cool, and we just hung out, and I said, if you ever want to do a movie or if you're ever going to do a movie, I have to do it. And he said, okay. And a few weeks later, I sent him a script that I had written. You know, it has, you know, I'm of the Kurt Cobain generation, like him dying kind of never left me. And I think this generation has these same issues of people, you know, with great talents being not of this world or not right for this world. And I thought I saw that same thing in Colson, and so I was able to write something that I think he quickly identified with.
And Colson, when you make a film that has a kind of semi-autobiographical element to it, when you're performing in a scene, does it blur that line? And sometimes when you're acting, do you find you're acting as yourself sometimes and not as the character? And do you think that can actually sort of inform and benefit performance?
Yeah, I would go home a lot of nights after filming and I would be like just still in whatever we were filming. I'd come to work the next day still in whatever we were filming, and then I think I'm actually more uncomfortable being the character that I play as Machine Gun Kelly off screen than I was uncomfortable playing that character on screen that I was playing. You know, his name is Cole in the movie, my name's Colson in real life. It was like the biggest relief I had in a long time was being able to have hair long enough to cover my eyes and get to somehow get rid of the fake smiles and stuff that I feel like I'm good at putting on, because I have the pressure of like acknowledging what's in front of me and then seeing these things that as a kid I was really idealizing, attaining, right? Like I was always like, oh, I can't wait till that happens or this happens, and fame is so cool, and like that's what I want, and you know, I want to be on arena stages with tens of thousands of people looking and singing along, and when that happened, so did the pressures of like almost like being forced to be grateful when really inside there's like a big emptiness. So because my eyes are able to see what's going on, I kind of like force myself to generate a smile and play this like this character, whereas the guy in the movie is so close to who I really am inside, and his hair was long enough to where it covered all the pressures of like, oh, you should be smiling, you should be grateful for what you've got, you know. So I didn't care to, and I just got to be a very vulnerable version of myself.
When being that vulnerable on screen, does it make it quite hard to watch this back? Have you watched it back?
Yeah, there was some scenes that I asked for Tim to take out, but I'm glad he didn't. He like, and it's only because it's so close to real life for me that you're almost like scared of people being like, oh, well, is that him? But art's supposed to make you uncomfortable. I think that's what great art does, and that's what this film does. So like, Tim also like did due diligence to the art of what filmmaking is by being like, go deep or go home, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the gray area is something that we both were interested in the part, or I would have, you know, written it for some actor, you know, which would have made a pretty shitty movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, because of course acting is a craft whereby people do pretend to be others, but there's a certain nuance and authenticity you get from having an actor who's lived through this experience.
Living through the experience. I mean, I think that's one of the great things is there's a scene in the movie where it's very much Colson. There's a scene in the movie right after that where it's very much MGK. There's a scene in the movie right after that that's Cole. So by the time you're you're going through this. The facts are feeding the fiction, are feeding the facts, are feeding the fiction until you don't care anymore. You're just in the present tense as the audience, which is the most important place for an audience to be, is always just right there watching, not thinking ahead, not thinking behind. And I think that's one of the things that Colson brings to this, is that he's fascinating to watch, but it's not a curiosity. You're swimming in this really, really strange waters together.
Yeah, I mean, is the finished product quite different to and the character quite different to what you wrote in the script? Because I guess it must be one of those projects where you let the actor bring so much of themselves. Was it quite different, the character, to the one you first conceived?
Yeah, I mean, I think the character I first conceived touched on things that Colson identified with or had been through. But like I wrote, for example, like in the scene where he has the woman, the young woman, Naomi Wilde, come and sing with him. You know, I wrote like, you sing this. And he was like, no, I'm gonna have her sing this. I was like, great. You know, like the last thing I want to do is take someone who knows more, you know, naturally, intrinsically about that world and tell them what to do. The whole idea is not to cage a wild animal. It's to let the wild animal kind of create something and then offer advice and shape and sculpt together.
I think as human beings, we have this almost quite strange, almost perverse fantasy where we sort of think about our own death sometimes. We can almost play it out in our own
For
minds.
sure. And
I was wondering about sort of playing that, because this character is a version of you. Did it kind of exercise a certain cathartic fantasy in some ways, playing this character who, you know, obviously in the movie didn't make it to the end?
I don't think death was like a fantasy for me. I think it always was like brushing up against me. I think I was always having moments where I was like, you know, I wrote this song on my last album, Tickets to My Downfall, the last song, and it's called Play This When I'm Gone. It was basically a letter to my daughter that I wrote in response to me thinking that I was about to die. And I was writing down in my notes a message to send to her that, you know, like, I felt like my heart was speeding up and I felt like everything was just, my body was collapsing and I had pushed it too far and done too much, and like, I think maybe the fantasy comes from if you aren't experiencing it, but I would always brush up against it so much it became like familiar to me. So whenever he was like, oh, you have to go here, I was like, that's second nature. That's really easy for me. Same with like when I loved there's this one key element in the movie that we switched, which was like his choice of drug. I remember we switched it, I forgot what it was, and I was like, we should,
bumps or something.
and I was like, he should do whippets. It's a very niche drug that became very like sceney in the past couple of years that maybe was, I don't know if it was a thing in a different generation or a different generation, but I remember vividly it being like this thing that started happening where we were all just like womping and sitting for 50 minutes without saying anything, like just in a room full of people like doing whippet, and you're just like, God, this is so dark, like what a weird niche new, like always looking for the new drug. And that also I'd never really get to see on film. It's always bumps, as like you associate like rock stars with cocaine or rock stars with this, rock stars. It's just like, it's sadder, because that's what I felt. I remember where I was in New York City, and I remember it was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, not thinking that, but it was just like the room, it was just oozing with like fashion people, this, and you're just like, you come out of this hole and you're like, no one, it was just like that. It was just silence.
In the bathroom or something, just like a...
Not even. We were all, it was like an open living room, and you're just like,
yeah.
And everyone's just like, it's just, it was just like, the reality of what is probably in like Andy Warhol's factory or something back in the day. You know, like you have this fantasy of what you think the cool is doing, and it's just a bunch of people like, we were all just fucked out of our minds and sitting in a pool of sin and sadness, and it was like, that was something that a studio film wouldn't have the edge to put on screen, and that's why I loved Tim for accepting the reality of what is really happening in the current state of what, you know, those like artists are doing, or like.
There's also like, there's no romance in it. Like, there's no romance of death in this movie. There's no romance of drug use. I mean, it's not, the movie is not some neo-realist downer at the same time. It's like, it's a movie about ideas, and about a person with ideas, and about a person with a life that, and life is what? Life is joy, it's sorrow, it's excitement, it's boredom, it's all these things. And instead of just this descent into drugs or this romantification of death, it's really just kind of a portrait. It's a portrait of a very, of a troubled soul, you know what I mean? And I think that's really interesting, and if you show that in a way that's creative but not taking liberties, that not making the shit up, I mean, I think it's both unique, but also it has something to say to people.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!